Matthew.
Matthew Lee, Inner City Press, on behalf of the Free UN Coalition for Access. Thanks for the multimedia briefing. We don't get enough of those. But I wanted to ask about it seems like a big issue is who's going to pay for the goals? How's the money going to be raised? And I covered the Addis conference, and it seemed like a lot of the developing countries didn't want there to be a tax system in which countries can't move assets around so that developing countries don't raise it. So I wonder, what's the place in the campaign of trying to impact not both governments in terms of their own tax laws, but even corporations, including the corporations you work with, to actually pay their fair share of taxes so that these developments can take place. And I just on the as a follow-up on transparency, and this is either for the two USG officials up here, is does the UN does it have a kind of a Freedom of Information Act transparency, the UN itself, in terms of making available when civil society groups or others ask for documents? Is there a right of the people, we the people, to actually get information from the UN? And if not, when will it take place?
I can only answer a tiny bit of that, but you know, the UK has an aid budget of 0.7 now, and one of the reasons for that is because of the campaigning, of the fame, of the fact that the Prime Minister, when he talks about these things, can refer to a public knowledge and public popularity of these issues. So to that extent, a campaign that's trying to make the goals famous and people passionate about the goals is eventually going to lead for it to be easier and have more pressure on the financing. That would be my simple answer.
Okay, yes, where are we? I think the implications and the platforms that these goals present themselves for will ask and follow up the demand for what we asked for in Addis and got. I think not going away are all the issues that were raised and maybe were not in black and white in the document, but certainly everything there is open under the partnership goal. If we are talking about honest and open and transparent government, then you're going to deal with illicit flows and paying cash and paying taxes and looking for tax havens. And I think it's how people take in different regions what is their priority and advocate for it. And I was going to ask our young person here, since that was such a big issue for us coming through from young people, how in fact you would use the goals, you know, to advocate. If it was goal 17 on partnerships and finance, would that be a useful one to say, well, I'm going to go and hammer away at government to try to ensure that these things happen? I'll say the one thing that came up in our Austrian discussion with young people was a concern about, so what does this mean universally? What does this mean for Austria? And I think there are global commitments that you make in developed countries, and 0.7 is one of them. And if you've not paid up, pay up. But it requires much more than that in terms of global action. So what Austria does at home, but also what the rest of us do as well. And you know, I think one thing that's happened here is just in the course of what Richard's experience of this process has done, has really opened us to question how do you make this rhetoric with a set of goals that would help you get there by 2030 work. In what language, what forum, who's going to take the message, because the messenger often is more important sometimes than the actual message itself.